Hi, Genevieve Jacobs from Region Media. I am in the wonderful and very evocative Larry Sitsky recital room at the ANU School of Music, ahead of Electric Blue, which is the next in the Llewelyn series for the Canberra Symphony Orchestra on Wednesday, April 26 and Thursday, 27. And more on the music in a moment, because there's a lot to talk about. Fireworks ahead, spellbinding tales, world premieres, rare treasures. But Jessica, let's start with something else that's very exciting, and that's the CSO's ongoing commitment to young talent. You're back for Electric Blue, but you've also been working with the first 5 Kingsland Scholars. These are extraordinary young musicians selected for their talent and their energy, their commitment to making music. Tell me what you've done with them in the last couple of days.
Yeah, so we had actually a masterclass on orchestral excerpts. So each of these brilliant musicians brought a short piece of orchestral music that they played by themselves, and then we basically workshopped it to a small audience as well. And these kind of opportunities for young musicians they're golden. They're so important because this is what they'll be doing. As professional musicians auditioning for orchestras, you have to play excerpt after excerpt. So we were looking at all kinds of things, you know, the actual notes and what the composer was asking, but also finding these kind of extra musical ideas as well. How do we make a beautiful melodic line from Elgar really come to life? How do we link that with our breath and aspects like that? So it was a really great session.
And these are absolutely musicians to watch. We have a violinist, cellist, trumpeter, and so on and so forth. What do you remember, though, about being a young musician, a young conductor yourself, and what it's like to have access to experience, to wisdom?
Yeah, so opportunities like this I think they're life-changing, and I don't say that lightly. I really believe this, that sometimes as a musician or a creative person, in many aspects in life, often it takes just somebody to come along and to open our minds to a different way of thinking, or to extend a particular way of thinking, or even just to reassure us that we're on the right path. And certainly for me, when I was younger studying conducting, I had numerous experiences where it just felt like, you know, I had this kind of tunnel vision with what I wanted to achieve, and all of a sudden actually I could see the horizon all around me. It's really life-changing.
Someone opens the windows,
yeah.
Light floods in,
right.
And you see everything in quite a different way.
Exactly.
So it's all about innovation and creativity, which is a good link to the program for Electric Blue. The centrepiece of this is Rimsky-Korsakov's Scheherazade. Many of us are familiar with 1001 Nights, the role of the storyteller. For Rimsky-Korsakov, Scheherazade is dark blue. Tell me.
That's right. So Rimsky-Korsakov was a synesthete. So when he heard music, he also saw colour. So it's a blending of those two senses. And for him, the key of E major, which is predominantly the key that we hear in Scheherazade, was a colour of deep blue, the deep blue of the ocean. And this piece is based around the story of 1001 Nights, and so much of it is set on the sea. And we really hear that. I don't see it as blue myself.
Well, you're also a synesthete, aren't you?
Right, exactly.
So how do you see Scheherazade?
Well, I mean, for me, I mean, there are two kind of almost conflicting elements, because the way that Rimsky-Korsakov has written the score, the way he has used the instruments, we really feel the rolling waves of the sea, the massive swells, that shimmering light on top. So I really get that from his instrumentation and the way he's written. But for me, colour-wise, actually, I get a lot of green.
Okay.
Loads and loads of green and flecks of white and yellow. So, you know, it's not the same for every person. But the fact that it inspired him to set this music in a particular key so meaningfully, I think there's a lot of inspiration we can gain from that as musicians.
And in fact, colour is the theme, chroma is the overarching theme for this year's Llewelyn series. Obviously something that's tremendously important to you. How's that influenced your programming at a more general level? Massively
so. So the whole programming ethos really for this year was developed from a book by the British filmmaker Derek Jarman. It's called Chroma, and it's always been a book that's been, you know, in my top 10 favourites. These poetic essays describing life and his interaction with with colour, the colour palette. So I've kind of fed that into our programming across the year. And Electric Blue really is a program which explores, you know, what does blue mean to us? We see the sky, we've got the deep blue of the ocean, we could feel blue. All of these aspects of really connecting really the sound of music to the feeling we get when we look at nature, blue in nature or blue in art as well.
So we also have on the program Alexander Scriabin's piano concerto, fairly rarely heard, but a real treasure for those who love it. And 2 world premieres. And this again connects us back to the Kingsland Scholars because it's all about Australian innovation and creativity. What are we going to hear?
So we're just hugely passionate. I'm hugely passionate. The CSO is hugely passionate about Australian music and how new music in the classical world can really reflect what we are living through now. So it's actually really meaningful. So we have a piece by Australian New Zealand composer Mariama Young, and it's called Kinds of Blue. And the brief for her was just really literally, can you write a piece of music with the same instrumentation, so the same size orchestra as the Rimsky-Korsakov, being somehow inspired by blue? And she went away and she came back with this idea of being really immersed in these massive canvases painted by American painter Mark Rothko.
Oh, the Rothko.
The massive, and they're so immersive. You know, you stand in front of them, it feels like these colours just, I don't know, it's like I'm wrapped up in them, as though one is wrapped up in a doona or something like that. So she's been inspired by that. And we have another piece by Australian composer, young, brilliant Australian composer Harry Stralick. And this was written for 2 of our very dear supporters of the CSO who commissioned this work. And this is linked to mountains, and you know, it's a wonderful piece, and when I have been studying it, I'm often drawn to that. You know, when you look at mountains in the distance, and sure, they're green, but in the distance actually they're really blue-hued.
Well, the blue line of the Brindabellas, which encircles us here in Canberra. It's so exciting, Jessica, to think about all the layering of ideas and influences that are coming together in the music that we'll hear in the Llewelyn series. So it's Electric Blue, Wednesday 26th and Thursday 27th of April. One of the things that the CSO does, yes, it plays music, but it grows musicians, it interacts with the community, it works on so many layers itself. Wonderful to talk to you again. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, and I hope that, you know, everyone comes along and enjoys this music, and also this kind of bigger picture in a way. It's a kind of visual element and linking to feelings and so on. So I hope people can dive into this blueness.
Oh, dive into the blue with the CSO. It's a great tagline. I'm Genevieve Jacobs. This is Region Media.